Girls are leaders. They are change makers, world shapers, and a powerful force to reckon with. This year, the world commemorates the 10th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child, celebrating the 600 million adolescent girls worldwide who've shown resourcefulness and resilience and are driving progress in their communities, building more equal societies. The theme this year is Our Time is Now, Our Rights, Our Future. So what's being done to ensure a gender-equal world, the challenges young girls still face, and the need to promote girls' empowerment? That's the global debate. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teena Jha. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome an illustrious panel on this edition of the Global Debate today. We have with us Professor Shulamit Almog, Presidential Advisor on Gender Equity and Co-Director of the Law, Gender and Policy Forum, University of Haifa, Israel. Ms. Raheel Raza, Munk Senior Fellow with the Macdonald Laurier Institute, Toronto, Canada, and Dr. Aparajita Chattopadhyay, Professor, International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. Thank you to all three of you for joining us on Sansad TV on this program today to discuss this pertinent topic as the world marks the 10th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child. Ms. Raheel Raza, allow me to begin the program today with you as, you know, one of the most senior-most panelists today on the program, and as someone who's been working on gender issues for quite some time now. As we mark this significant milestone, do you see the world having made any kind of progress when it comes to issues relating to girls' rights? Over the last one decade, has there been any kind of transformation in the lives of young girls globally?
Yes, of course. I would say that there has been progress. There has been some transformation. But in the work that I do on women's rights and gender equality, I feel sometimes that for every 10 steps we take ahead, we are pulled down 8 steps. And so, you know, it goes back and forth. You know, after decades of the UN having treaties, ratified treaties about women's rights, we still find that culturally, politically, economically, socially, there is a discrimination against girls because the mindset doesn't change overnight. It takes decades to change the mindset of the patriarchy and the misogyny of some countries where women are treated as second-class citizens, girls are still being trafficked, they're being forced into underage marriage, they're dealing with honor killings, they're dealing with female genital mutilation. And in some of the cases, the statistics actually have risen in the last decade, which is very, very worrying. And I'll address that specifically when I get to talk.
Ms. Raza, before I move on to the other panelists, the fact that, you know, the theme this year is Our Time is Now, Our Rights, Our Future. How do you see this in the context of some of the contemporary events that are taking place across different cities in different countries where girls are standing up for the basic rights? For example, what's actually happening in Iran?
Yes, I was going to talk about that. What has happened in Iran just shows us that while women are being forcefully put down, their freedoms are being taken away from them. But there is now a global movement, the movement in Iran, and the support that they have internationally, which tells us that the time has come for women. It is their time now. And they will stand up for their rights despite being constantly tortured, beaten, jailed, killed, raped. The situation in Iran should be an example for all of us that if we need to talk about girls' rights and women's rights, we have to support the movement in Iran and any other country where women are standing up. So, you know, our support is vital for them and for the future of the next generation of women.
Professor Almog, coming to you for your perspective as, you know, you've been one of the leading equality campaigners in your country. What are some of the contemporary challenges that you still see for which girls around the world are yearning for which they have to stand up to? The United Nations describes young girls as future shapers. I think there's something that we can add to it. Girls can also be powerful shakers in changing the status quo when the need comes. Don't you think so?
Thank you for this question and for putting it the way you did. I think that it is undoubtedly very important to support women and young girls in situation of severe crisis, as Raheel just mentioned. Of course, there's no question about that. But the situation is that even the normal lives and the normal range of opportunities that are open to girls and young women in many countries is still very limited. I think that the most important right that we can talk about in contemporary terms for young girls is the right for agency. Under any circumstances, in any situation, girls must have agency. And we must prepare the circumstances and the background that will enable them to reach agency. For example, we are always talking about the Convention for the Rights of the Child. But as you rightly tagged our program, we are talking about the girl child. And maybe there's time to talk about a convention for girls which are which is in many ways different, or perhaps have nuances than the rights of children in general. For example, I can think about a preliminary list of rights for girls, such as a right to fulfill myself in the way that I wish to, the right to have a voice and to have my voice heard, and to lead, and to deserve respectable representation in media, the right to feel comfortable whatever I want to wear, whatever I believe, whatever my religion is. All this seems to be as something which is obvious, but the fact is it's not obvious at all. And I think perhaps a convention that will list these rights and perhaps declare that we still have to fight for them can help in this issue.
That's right. So multiple challenges, Dr. Chattopadhyay, in the sense that girls still across different countries, across different parts of the globe are still fighting for, and this is something that we have to perhaps find solutions to. The world together has to come together and find solutions to. We did make some kind of progress in the last 1 decade until the pandemic. How do you see the pandemic having undone or erased some of the significant progress that was made in terms of women's health, in terms of women's education in India, as also the larger picture in South Asia?
Okay, thank you for the question. But before answering to your question directly on COVID, I will talk in simple terms that there are different pillars of empowerment. First is the intellectual empowerment that entails about improvement in education and health aspects. And India has done significantly well in both these aspects, but we need to walk miles before we sleep, and there are a lot of loopholes still existing. The second point is about women's involvement in work and economic contribution. And India is stuck in this matter because for many, many decades, we are hovering around 25% work participation of women, and that is something to worry about because India's GDP is improving. And without women's work participation, it is very difficult to sustain GDP. So there are a lot of problems in this area of economic participation. And the third is about consciousness generation that can start from family and the basic education and schools. And for that, we need very strong system support. I must applaud for the recent the programs that the government has launched, for example, conditional cash transfer. And we are doing fantastic in the sense that our sex ratio at birth is now more or less stabilized. It usually follows an inverted U where countries are having preference or patriarchal mind setup. But in the recent statistics, we can easily see that we have plateaued, and perhaps with improvement in education, that will improve in the near future. Now, having said so, COVID has done COVID has hampered many indicators of women. For example, in case of health and mainly maternal care, during that time, during the lockdown, what happened to women and how they have delivered and how much ANC they have accessed, how healthy are the babies, we don't know exactly. About job also, because women are mainly engaged in our unorganized sector. And so the first problem is faced by women in a household if somebody is giving up the job, that is women. And that happened during the COVID period. This is what I can say about COVID.
And not just COVID, Ms. Raza, any kind of uncertainty, any kind of instability, any kind of geopolitical crisis that take place globally impacts girls and women directly or indirectly. You very rightly said, we take 2 steps, but then we are pushed behind several steps and we have to start from there once again. That perhaps is the kind of attention that this issue has not been getting. So in terms of garnering that kind of attention, bringing back the focus of governments the world over, of policymakers, towards the urgency of the transformation which girls' lives across the world demand. How do you see that happening? In the wake of such important issues being played up globally, this issue takes the back burner.
You're absolutely right. This issue takes the back burner, but women's issues, girls' issues have always been on the back burner as far as governments are concerned. So it's very important that we empower our governments, but I want to just take a quick moment to address something that both my co-panelists have talked about, and that is the education of girls. Now, you look at a country like Afghanistan, where women are denied education. I mean, this is the 21st century. How can the world sit back and allow this to happen? We have a saying that if you educate a boy, you educate an individual. When you educate a girl, you educate an entire family, a village, a country, the entire nation. So girls' education definitely needs to be one of the primary issues that have to be addressed from the top down. Now, we are activists and we can work from the ground up, but we need governments to pay attention to these issues and bring them back from the back burner to being front and center. If you look at Pakistan, you look at Afghanistan, you look at countries where women don't have the freedom to even offer a vote. They don't have inclusion in the political systems of their countries, but education will get them there. So we need to focus definitely on girls' education.
Professor Almog, what's intriguing is each time we talk about gender equality, it's the freedom of choice that we often discuss. Even now, I mean, all of the campaigns that are running and the issues that have been brought to the fore by girls across the world in demanding their rights, freedom of choice has been paramount. This is the choice that women have to make, but ultimately it's not the woman who's making that choice, it's somebody else who's making that choice on behalf of women. So how do we change that? How do we allow the woman herself to make any kind of choice that she wants, be it on the reproductive rights, be it on the kind of clothing that she wants to have, be it on the kind of education that she wants to have, or the kind of lifestyle that she wants to have?
Are you
Professor
asking
Almog.
me that question?
Professor Almog, that question is for you.
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, yes.
Well, it is a difficult question, and it is an issue of political power and of solidarity. I think that much depends upon women building their mutual links and solidarity and power. I think that women must take this power because it will not be given to them by politicians. Actually, the first step that is taken by a reactionary regime is what is called the backlash. Is like taking back rights that we thought we already have. So that's that's the core issue, really, that you just pointed at.
Professor, since we're talking about the kind of challenges that persist, there is some significant work also being done by campaigners like you. If you could very briefly explain to us and our viewers the kind of work that you do in bringing about gender equality, in ending the gender disparity that persists in Israel, what kind of changes, positive changes that you have successfully brought about in the lives of young girls, in the lives of women in your country.
Okay, I'll tell you about the most recent example, which is a change that I'm trying to achieve, but I haven't succeeded yet. And it is something that apparently might be seen as a small issue, but I think it's not a small issue. It's the issue of language. In Hebrew, I guess it's the same in many other languages. I don't know about this in India, for example, but in Hebrew, the language is gender loaded. When you use the masculine, it is a general term. When you say he, a girl should perceive herself as included. And there is in our parliament, which is called the Knesset, a committee which is called the Committee for the Rights of the Child. The child in Hebrew is Yeled, which is also only a boy child, not a girl child. So I try for years to change the name of the committee for, I'll say it in Hebrew and then explain, ועדה לזכויות הילדה והילד, to include the girl child in the name of the committee, which is a very easy change. It doesn't cost money. And on the face of it, there's no good reason not to do it. And yet, I've already, together with other partners, I'm doing it mainly with a friend of mine, which is called Dr. Shulamit. This is an initiative we started some years ago. And whenever there's a new chairperson of the committee, we write a letter signed by many women and men asking to change the name of the committee by adding a child to the title. And yet, we still haven't succeeded that. One chairperson answered, this is a political issue, I cannot do it. Another answered us, it is not an important issue. And then we had an answer that said, no, because if we will change the name, another committees will want to change the title for gender neutral, and we can't have that.
That's an interesting initiative you're working towards,
perhaps,
Professor.
But it teaches us
the fact that even though it may sound small, the fact that it may go unnoticed, but is this discrimination, Ms. Raza, also in other languages, some of the most frequently used languages, because it's so inherent. The gender discrimination is so inherent across cultures, across countries, that it sometimes goes unnoticed.
Yes, gender discrimination exists in language, culture, society, everywhere. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's in your face. But hats off to Dr. Shulamit for the work that she's doing. In my work, I was part of a documentary called Diaries, in which we exposed and created awareness about the three major issues facing women, which is honor killings, forced and underage marriage, and female genital mutilation. And now the female genital mutilation is a very, very big issue for girls. I mean, just in the United States, do you realize that there are almost 500,000 girls who are at risk of or have had female genital mutilation? And it exists across the board throughout the world. And it has gone under the cover because of political correctness. People don't want to address it. I want to very quickly also say that the empowerment of women, their agency, is something we've all addressed, which is very important. But I look at it as being connected to poverty as well. In some third world countries, women are living in such abject poverty that they don't have 3 meals a day. They don't have a roof over their head. They don't have clean water to drink. So they can't take out the time, or they don't have the wherewithal to address their human rights or their freedoms. So those of us who have those freedoms need to be their voice. We have to be a voice for the voiceless.
That's true.
We have to expose the problems. We have to create awareness of the problems so that the world knows that these issues exist. We can't just push them under the carpet.
Dr. Chattopadhyay, Ms. Raza spoke about some blatant kinds of discrimination that take place against girls in the name of religion, in the name of faith. India has tried to address and correct some of these blatant forms of discrimination, for example, by banning the triple talaq. And also what we hear, what reports suggest is that the government is also mulling over bringing a uniform civil code so that religion, matters of faith, any kind of extremism does not come in the way of women's rights and towards girls' empowerment. But the question here is, which are some of the areas that you think that we need to focus on towards ensuring that girls get due opportunities, that girls in our country are empowered?
There are a number of cultural and social practices that are very regressive. And we as a female should stand together and should not dwindle with our opinions, that our opinion should stand straight for India, for Pakistan, for Iran. Okay, so as an individual, I feel that for promotion of education, health, we can shun many practices that are not gender egalitarian. And for that, we also need system support. Okay, in context of India, before that, I must say that there are two misconceptions about patriarchy, or you can say that the toxic masculinity. This is based on two wrong propositions. First is that we say men are stronger. Science doesn't say that. Women live longer, women are biologically stronger. Women do most laborious work. So on what basis you are saying that women can't drive a tractor? Women can do that. So allow them to enter into the work sphere and give them equal opportunity and equal payment. Second proposition is that the power hierarchy doesn't depend at the current level on how much physical power we are having. It depends on the social power and who is socially more powerful. It is men who is occupying the top position of the pyramid, right? So we have to be socially powerful as well. Interestingly, women's social networking and women's social skill are much stronger. Then the question is why women are still at the lower rung of the pyramid. We really need to think, and this is basically for gender unequal distribution of resources or opportunities. And third is that it has been said that men are aggressive and that's why patriarchy is surviving. No, everybody is aggressive. Rather, if you put it in a polished terms, you should be assertive, right? Everybody should be assertive in this competitive world to talk about rights, to talk about opportunities. So with these three wrong propositions, I can talk about India. For example, education. Yes, India has done commendable work in primary and secondary education. And if you talk about the tertiary sector of education, recent report says that in STEM, women proportion are much higher than what it is in America or UK. We should feel proud for that. But the point is that, again, in terms of work, it is remaining stagnant. We need to promote women's work, women's lot of social support, because if you look at NSS data, the cooking, caring, and cleaning proportion is more or less same across India in all states, irrespective of their education, irrespective of their work participation. What does it mean? We stay in a very watertight compartment. So family is the base. We need man's support. Otherwise, women cannot come out. Along with that, we need system support. We need a lot of care centers, whether it is child care or elderly care. Otherwise, they cannot come out of the work without
That's
the support.
true. At the end, I think it's about equal opportunities, Ms. Raza, isn't it? it's not just in India. Globally, girls and women have proved that when given the right opportunities, they have proved to be the game changers. But the opportunities either come in very late or they lack access to these opportunities. How do we ensure equal opportunities? I mean, of course, it's like a fairy tale when we talk about a gender equal world. But as you rightly said, those of us who have the access, those of us who are privileged to not actually be fighting for those rights, how do we ensure that those who have lagged behind in this journey are actually pulled together along? How do we ensure achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal? It all looks very good on paper, but at the same time, from the most developed country to those at the bottom rung, the situation of girls and women, largely in terms of opportunities, is the same.
I think there is one very important point that we have overlooked, and that is the education of the men. While it's very important to educate the women, I think it is equally important, perhaps more in some countries, where the men also need to be educated. And it is through that education of families, through the empowerment and awareness, that the equal opportunities will come for the girls, because as they go out into the world, they will be given that agency to be equal, for example, to their brothers. But we know that in many countries this does not happen. That gender discrimination that comes embedded from culture, tradition, through generations, works its way down into the family structure. So it's very important to have that education and awareness, so that they understand that this is what equality is about. This is what humanity is about. And we need to keep on empowering women. Wherever changes have come in a positive way in women's rights, it has been the women themselves who have lobbied for that change.
That's true. That's an
you
important
look at a country
point.
like
Change
Morocco,
takes
where
a
the
little
women
time to
lobbied
come,
and they
but
changed
it
the family
ultimately
law.
does happen. That's the bottom line. And perhaps we've spoken about the challenges. We've spoken about how to ensure and how to not stop working towards ensuring a gender equal world. So at least we can hope and work towards bringing about that change. Time is running out. I'll have to leave it at that. Thank you once again to all three of you for joining us on this edition of the Global Debate, putting things into perspective for us and our viewers. Absolute pleasure to have all of you on the program today. So that's it from us on this edition of the Global Debate today, viewers. Thank you for your time as well. I'll see you same time next week. Until then, you take good care of yourselves and keep watching Sansad TV.